Hello and welcome everybody to the Buy Round Salary Cap Health Check, where myself and Brent Read are going to dive into all 17 clubs, have a little look on the horizon the next 2 or 3 years, 26, 27, 28. As we will see, there is some potential for some huge moves on the horizon, and we're going to look at clubs' ability to pounce or whether they're going to be looking around going, what could have been. Reedy, great to see you. You've been hard at work on the laptop.
I've got the abacus out, Jimmy. I've done the maths. I've tried to work out who's paid what. I reckon we've landed ballpark in about the vicinity of where all the clubs are placed, Jimmy.
The bloods have been taken, urine extracted, and we're going to have a quick look at what the MRI scans have shown for each club. So, Reedy, who have you got first? I mean, and also,
Do we want to start at the bottom or the top, Jimmy? Why don't we start with the teams who are tight, who don't have a lot of room?
Not particularly healthy. And look, just because you don't have much room, that brings security, that brings the known, but obviously it doesn't give you an opportunity to pounce on some opportunities. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing, though, because stability in certain positions, obviously, as we've seen with Penrith over the years, has been a beneficial.
Well, we start if you take, for example, the Knights, Jimmy, they're not going to have a lot of room in 2027. They've basically got 24 players already under contract. You have a top 30. So they've only got 6 spots available. But if you look at that team, their spine's set in stone. Ponga, Dylan Brown, probably Sandon Smith, and maybe Fletcher Sharp in the halves, Phoenix Crossland. So their spine's set in stone. Basically, their squad's set. They've got 6 spots available. I reckon ballpark, they've got maybe $1.5 to $2 million to spend on those 6 spots. Not a lot of wriggle room there. So what they have is what they've got for 27, the Knights.
It would then, obviously, we're having a bit of a deeper dive here. Are they looking at trying to produce some young forwards?
Well, they've got some young guys coming through, actually, Jimmy, some really high class.
That is the default position of every club. Oh, we've got some great kids.
No, they do
through.
have a young kid named Cody Hopwood, who was Australian schoolboy a couple of years ago. Absolute gun, front rower, which is a real area for them that they need strengthening in. They've put a lot of hope in him. He's signed long term. And as I said, he's been earmarked as the next really class front rower to come through the system. So there's big hopes for him. But, I mean, obviously they've put a lot of money in Dylan Brown. They've got a lot of money in Kalen Ponga. Kalen's off at the end of 27, so that might free up some room depending on what Kalen does. But as I said, their spine's set in stone. They just need to strengthen some of those positions around that. They don't have a lot of room to do it. But they've got high hopes for Cody Hopwood. And if he comes through, I mean, that solves their front row issue because they've got Jacob Safidi. They've signed Trey Mooney. They've got some front rowers there. They just need a little bit more in the middle of the field.
Not a lot of flexibility for the Knights. So in terms of their health check, not great.
Well, it's gonna
but not necessarily a bad thing.
It's probably going to depend on how Dylan Brown and Kalen go, right?
Yes.
Well, if
absolutely,
Dylan Brown and Kalen set the world on fire, maybe it compensates for some of their other deficiencies. There goes my phone.
Oh, that is.
That's what fail or what is that?
Well,
my health check's no good, Jimmy.
The question is, would that happen on 360? Obviously not. But we are not 360. We're just a Tin Pot podcast, really, and that's how you treat us.
One of the great podcasts. But again, that depends. Like obviously, we've all seen the areas in their squad that need. I mean, I think everyone's identified the areas they need to fix. Signing Trey Mooney will help to an extent, but if Hopwood comes through, those issues in the middle of the field, well, they're fixed. And then you've got a spine that potentially, that spine, we saw Dylan Brown at the Pac Champs, outstanding at the Pac Champs. And you know,
behind a really good pack.
Behind a really good pack and playing 6. Well, and I've got to say, speaking of people of the Knights in the wake of that, we've all assumed Dylan Brown's going to play 7. Their view is we never said he was playing 7. So, you know, Dylan Brown may end up at 6, Sandon Smith at 7, Kalen at fullback, Phoenix Crossland at hooker. That's a pretty good spine. And then you get a couple, you know, a Copwood comes through, Trey Mooney, you know, gets his chance and seizes it. There's hope there. I don't think there's some blue sky there, Jimmy.
Look, I'm not one of these people that like to put a price tag on certain positions. You know, I think I've looked at the winger position, for example, and say, well, you shouldn't cap the highest paid winger on 700,000 or whatever it may be, because as long as they're contributing to the cause, it doesn't matter the number or where they stand in attack or on defence, it's what they contribute to the cause. But I think I'm going to contradict myself here and say, well, for Dylan Brown, for the money that he's on, I don't know if he can play 5'8".
Well, but if Dylan Brown's playing 7 and not playing well, how does that help with the price tag he's on?
Well,
I think you've just got him where he fits best, where he can have the most influence and impact the game the most, Jimmy. But then, I think we saw at the Pac Championships, 6 is his best position.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. But when you spend
that amount of money,
well, the question would be is, what can I contribute to the football side in the 6 jersey? What are my roles and responsibilities versus number 7? And you most of the time, for most teams, the responsibility of the organisation of the side, the kicking game, it falls on the number 7. That's why they are so criticised. That's why they carry the burden almost of the responsibility of the team to get a victory or defeat.
Yeah, well, that's the decision they got to work out. But I mean, for me, you just got to play him where he plays his best footy, where he can influence results. And I think we saw it, as I said, we saw at the Pac Champs, he can influence games positively playing at 6. So I think, obviously having spoken to people at Newcastle, they're now saying, well, we never said he was playing 7. That indicates to me that they're leaning towards playing him at 6. But it obviously depends on how he goes in the pre-season.
In terms of their health check, though, not ideal. If something pops up, comes available, not too dissimilar to what they did with Dylan Brown, there'll be no repeat of that unless Kalen Ponga is no longer part of their team after 27.
27, there's not much room. Beyond that, depends on KP.
Who's next on the firing line? Who's next on there?
Why don't we talk a couple of mortal enemies, the Roosters and Rabbitohs.
Oh, okay, then, yeah.
Both, Jimmy, very tight in 27.
So unhealthy in terms of their cap flexibility.
Well, they're interesting, right? Because you look at the Roosters, both these teams have got about 23 players already contracted for 27. Don't have a lot of cap room, but the Roosters have got a lot of money in their spine. Tedesco, Sam Walker, Reece Robson, and I'm not factoring in Daly Evans here. Now, he's got an option for 27, so if you throw him in, 24 players under contract, their cap's tight, like not a lot of room to move. So, but they look like a pretty balanced team for me, the Roosters. When you look at that, as I said, Tedesco extended for 27. Sammy Walker, you would think in 27 will be right in that sweet spot in his career. He's played a few years of first grade. He's at that game total where you think guys are starting to hit their straps. Robson at hooker, good signing for them. So if Cherry Evans plays on in 27, they look in a pretty good spot, the Roosters. Young forward pack again, those guys will have played 50 to 100 games, and that's when we all think these guys start to hit their stride. So I'm not overly concerned about the Roosters.
I was going to say, do you think Mr. Politis and obviously Coach Robinson would be really pleased? They've set this up. This is by design. This is, look, we know what we've got here. Yeah. We don't need to a massive overhaul. No. They've been through, whether they would describe it as this or not, they're rebuilding. They've built it now. They've laid the foundations. Yeah. They're locked in. They know the direction that they're going, and maybe there's just a fine-tuning here or there. And
you can see the succession plans in place, right? Because in that top 30 in 2027, you've got Toby Rodwell. He's ready to take over at number 7 if Daly doesn't go around again. Rex Bassingthwaite's in the system. He's their fullback for the future. Now, Teddy's contracted for 27, but Bassingthwaite's in the top 30 as well. So there's a clear plan at the Roosters, and I reckon even though they don't have a lot of cap space, I think you can see where they're going and the direction they're going in, and you can see they've got blokes ready to step in beyond 27. So I think they're well placed. The Rabbitohs are a bit different, right?
Just quickly, just back to the Roosters.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be fascinating to see them change from, the Galacticos, and you think of them of big marquee signings. Obviously, they've developed Walker, but the rest of their spine has been brought to the club. But you mentioned those 2 junior players that are in their system. Wouldn't it be amazing to see the Roosters do almost a complete, not completely 180, but a complete U-turn on their ethos, their strategy, their fundamental principles on how to build a team?
Well, they've sort of been going down this path with that Roosters Academy. They brought through those young forwards, Steep, Wong, Fiketti, guys like that. But they still spend money, Jimmy. They did go out and sign Reece Robson. So they do go out.
Yeah,
when there's a void there that needs to be filled, they open the checkbook. But they can't do that before 2028 because they're pretty locked up until 2027.
And this all comes around from a trip to Barcelona.
Does it?
I believe so. There's your phone again, as if you've not knocked it off. Turn it on silent. Jesus, really. Shocking. But but I think they went to Barcelona.
That was a few years back.
Yeah,
went through the academy
and they went
there,
through.
right.
I mean, I went to Barcelona and started eating patas bravas.
I went to Barcelona. I can't remember being there for 2 days.
Anyway. I just came back and started drinking sangria. But either way, the Roosters have gone their own way and decided to go with the youth development.
Yeah, but South's a bit different, right, Jim? Because again, they've got 23 players locked up. But if you look at their spine, it's a bit up in the air.
There's not that much money in the spine as it currently stands.
So they've got a lot of money locked up.
Well, sorry, assuming
depends
Mitchell,
where you play
Latrell.
If Latrell's in the spine, yeah. But if they play Jai Gray at fullback, which they potentially could do, probably means Whiten at 6, Latrell in the centres, halfback, your guess is as good as mine, Mamazoulis at hooker, or Brandon Smith at hooker, sorry, with Mamazoulis potentially.
Well, the flip side of that is if they have Mitchell in the spine, Whiten in the spine, and Brandon Smith in the
then
spine,
it's got to be money in the spine.
Yeah.
But they obviously don't have a lot. They've got 23 spots, don't have a lot of money spare, and they're trying. And I haven't factored in Keon Kalamatongi there. Now, if they keep him, that's at least $1 million, Keon, because that's what he's on the market for at the moment. There's clubs willing to pay him that and more.
$1 million.
Oh yeah,
good on.
Keon's on $950, $970 now, I believe. So it's not significantly more than he's on. So they could be really tight in 27, like to the point where they've got no room to move. And a lot of it depends on Latrell. I mean, we all know with South, when Latrell plays well, they tick, right? So, it's really interesting their situation, the Rabbitohs. As I said, not a lot of room to move. You look at the players, they've got big money there. Campbell Graham, Jack Whiten, Latrell Mitchell, Cam Murray, Jai Arrow, Brandon's on good coin. They're really tight in the cap.
But that is the nucleus of a potential top 4 side.
When they're fit, when they're on the park, and that's been the biggest issue for them, right? They haven't been able to keep blokes fit and on the park, and it's been their big money guys who've been missed footy. That's the problem.
Do you think, obviously, the conundrum of the number 7, and obviously Cody maybe one more year at least. I mean, maybe a second. I think for Souths to ultimately kick with this side, I think they do need to address the number 7 issue. But like you said, they don't have a lot of room, and maybe that comes from within, and we see Humphreys or maybe a Sullivan really kick on.
Jonah Glover they've signed. They've got to hope that one of those guys do kick on. The interesting one for me is the Jai Gray, Latrell Mitchell situation, Jimmy. Because Jai Gray did play 6. I was watching him play in a schoolboys carnival for Queensland. It was in the same one a couple of years ago where Queensland played. I think Queensland might have even won it. And Jai Gray was the captain. I believe he played 5'8". So he has played some 6, Jai Gray. Maybe they move him to 6, allows you to leave Latrell at fullback, and that spine's got a bit more.
Cody goes to 7.
Well, again, I've kicked on to 2027 here, so I've gone beyond next year.
Ashton Ward potentially?
Maybe. As I said, they got Glover. They need one of these halves to come through.
Yeah, they need one of them. I always find when you've got players in the same position that are all about equal and we can't decide, it almost becomes, one of those individuals to just grab it by the scruff of the neck and go, I'm going to leave you in my weight here. Yeah. Obviously, South Sydney will be looking to beat opposition as a team, but within that roster of 30, there've got to be some separation. There's got to be it's a me against you mentality. There's only one number 7 at this football club, and out of the 4 of us, it's going to be me.
So, I mean, if you look at their health check, Jimmy, it's going to depend, as always, on how Latrell goes, whether they can keep Cam Murray on the park. If they can do that, they probably don't need a lot of salary cap space because they're in a pretty good spot in terms of one of those 7s can stand up. They've got a decent squad, so it's a top 8, top 4 team.
They sure do. I'm assuming that the Panthers are
Yeah,
not particularly healthy when it comes to flexibility and the ability to make a move.
And we've seen that with Liam Henry at the moment. He's on the market. And Penrith, obviously, we're trying to keep him, made him an offer, but they can't compete with Perth. So it looks like Liam Henry, as we sit here today, is Perth bound. So we've seen this over the years. Penrith just lose players consistently, bring through young blokes to fill those spots. And, they're going to face the pressure of a guy like Casey McLean, who they've signed, who's contracted, right? But Casey McLean sort of accelerated so quickly, they're probably going to have to upgrade him at some point down the track as well. So not a lot of money to move, but again, they got that spine locked in. Edwards, Talangi, Cleary, Mitch Kenny. It's locked in long term. Isaiah Yeo, Liam Martin, Brian Toto. So
Leota, they've got like more than enough.
Yes.
At their disposal. Yeah. Which it's an interesting one as well. And speaking with Matt Cameron, he's upfront and honest around they have their principles and their formula, and they do not budge no matter who you are. And I think that is likely to be the case with Liam Henry. But we can't compromise the algorithm, the formula, whatever you want to call it, in order to accommodate somebody. So the interesting one though is Casey McLean, because I guess if you look at their squad, it's one for positions where there's two of those players on the field.
Percentage, don't they?
Yes. So for wingers, there's two, centers two, edge back rows two. It usually goes. It's not evenly distributed. It's usually we've got one really highly paid centre, the other one not so much. One really highly paid winger like a Brian Toto, and it's Tommy Jenkins on the other side. Respectfully speaking, is never going to demand the upper echelon of winger money. I think with the centres though, it's really interesting with the acceleration of McLean. And obviously Isaac Tango there on very good money at the moment. Will we see the Panthers faced with that dilemma of we can't afford... Well, no, they will be faced if they stay true to their fundamentals. They can't have two centres of McLean demanding what he will on the open market and an Isaac Tango as well.
Yeah, you would think something's got to give there eventually. They've got a bit of time, I imagine, to sort that out because both those guys are contracted long term. But Tango's contracted till the end of 28. And if you said to me now which one would they keep, you're probably going to keep Casey McLean. He's gone past, I think, Isaac Tango. So maybe at some point in the next couple of years, they've got to make a tough call with Tango. But I always think...
they will have to.
Well, they will, yeah.
They will. They likely can't afford to keep them both.
And I always think with Penrith, though, Jimmy, it doesn't matter how much cap room they got, right? How many spots they got filled. If Nathan Cleary's in that jersey, they're going to compete. And they're going to be even with a shot at the premiership because he is that good. Yeah. That he just elevates everyone around him. So, they don't have a lot of cap room. If you talk about their cap and we go, well, are they healthy? Well, it's probably not in terms of being able to go out and buy blokes. But with that spine and Nathan, I'm not worried about Penrith.
Yeah, it's almost laughable when people talk about Isaiah Katoa and saying, well, he could have been the sixth at Penrith. It's like, no, he couldn't. Because if he'd have followed Jerome Luai, it wouldn't have been that long before, other sides realised that the potential of this young man, and he would have been valued at way more than what Penrith could afford to have keep him. So at maximum, they could have got him for 1 or 2 years before Isaiah Katoa was plucked, was taken away, because they simply would not have been able to afford Katoa and Cleary like they couldn't afford Luai and Cleary.
That's a good segue, Jimmy, because you can move into the Dolphins now, who've got a really tight salary cap as well for 27. Don't have a lot of room to move. Can't imagine they'll be big players in the market because obviously they've got George Williams coming to the club.
Yes, they do, yeah.
He's one of the big signings for 27. But, they've got 18 players contracted and a lot of them on big bucks. The Hammer, Herbie Farnworth, Isaiah Katoa, Tommy Flegler, George Williams, Tommy Gilbert, all on decent coin. So they're pretty locked in, the Dolphins, for 27. I actually really like this. I really like them for the next couple of years. I think
Me too,
I think they're going to give it a real shake because while they don't have a lot of room to move, I reckon that squad's just about set. And if Katoa keeps going the way he is, Herbie's already arguably the best centre in the game. If they can get Flegler back fit and playing footy again, he was just a dominant presence when he played.
Morgan Knowles coming from St Helens as well, who excelled in the Test matches.
Keep Gilbert fit. Mate, that's a gun forward pack.
It is.
Got a good spine, plenty of strike, and they don't have a lot of cap space. They haven't got a lot of room to move, but I reckon that squad's just about set.
With any room that they do have, would the conversations with Katoa be happening now and upgrade and extend now? Because when's he available? It's
you put me on the spot here, Jimmy. I'll have a quick look. You keep fill in.
I think if you're smart, end of 28, so he's available.
So I think from memory,
I think you start having those conversations.
From memory, they only extended him. Was it last year? They upgraded and extended him.
I think they did, but again, it's people will talk about the inability of clubs to get a bargain, and that is a fair and valid point. But I just feel as if the risk of not acting now is, look, Katoa presents himself as a very level-headed, very mature head on young shoulders, and can I imagine can see the riches of the future. Not that that's why he plays the game, but also the risk of losing him, and the Dolphins are in a unique position that no other club in the land has to sign him now on what would be a fair valuation, and then extend him, and then
what's a fair valuation for Katoa at the moment, Jimmy? Is he $1 million player?
Absolutely, he is. If you compare it, well, maybe you shouldn't compare, but players do. If you were to rank him, I think he was the best 7 in the competition last year. In terms, if you just isolate season 2025, if you isolate that season alone, I think he was the best 7 in the comp.
Well, that's 1.2, 1.3.
There you go.
Their cap health's in massive trouble if they pay him that, Jimmy.
But that's the give and take, isn't it?
Yeah.
It does make you wonder about with George Williams coming in, whether that could be because I imagine he'd come on.
I still find that a strange signing
with Nicarima. Yeah,
strange signing.
I'm with you on that one. Maybe we look at their superstar forward pack, and if everybody's fit, it's hard to. They're going to have rep players on the bench.
Yeah.
If you think Gilbert, Flegler, Knowles, Plath,
Fini Fuiaki
playing like
Kafusi, Safidi.
Yeah, they're going to have rep players not make the starting 13, which is a great position to be in, but you wonder whether there's an oversupply of forwards and whether or not in the future they may look to either look into someone's unhappiness at minutes with a view to free up that money to upgrade and extend Qatar.
Yeah. Well, they've got guys like Kafusi coming off contract at the end of 27, so they'll have a little bit of space after 27. The issue's for 27. They can't really go on the market now and sign players because they just don't have the space for them.
Well, I guess they've done their work, haven't they?
They've done it, yeah.
They've done their work.
You look at that squad and you go, that team's just about cherry ripe for the next 2 years to give it a fair shake.
Fair play. Let's move on, really.
Okay.
What have you got for us next? Who's on the dock?
These sides have sort of got a little bit of room, right? But there's little asterisks beside a couple of them. Brisbane.
Okay.
Only got 15 players contracted for 2027. So theoretically, you would think they can go on the market. I haven't factored Payne Haas in that because they haven't re-signed Payne Haas for 2027. I reckon they've got about $4.5 to $5 million to spend. Payne would chew up 1.3, 1.4, maybe 1.5.
Does Pezzett come into that as well?
Pezzett, I've included Pezzett in that.
So they still got that much money.
Yeah, they've only got 15 players contracted, Jimmy. If you look at the guys who are on big money at that club, who they've got contracted for 2027,
there's
really Walsh, Ezra Mann, and
Carrigan.
Staggs, Carrigan. So 16 players. I've left Paddy Carrigan out there. So 16 guys. So throw Carrigan in. So you got Mam, Staggs, Walsh, Carrigan. You throw Payne Haas in that mix, and their cap comes. Then it's real tight. They can't do much in the market.
They can't go marquee.
They can't go marquee player 27.
You've got to rely on the next Shibasaki or the next Mariner.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, but look at that. We look at that squad now and we go, well, they're going to compete again for the next couple of years, regardless. Because
again, another strong nucleus.
The spine's so good. The forward pack, if they keep Payne, keeping Payne's integral for them. Because if they lose Payne, they lose the best front row in the comp. Right?
I think
so.
If you've got a combination of Walsh, Mam, Pezzett, 9 Walters,
Moser,
Walters. Moser gone?
No, he's still there.
Moser, Walters.
Walters isn't done actually. I think he's off the end of 26. Billy Walters. So
and then, but then with the middle of any combination of Willison, Haas, Carrigan. You're looking at the foundations of another.
You've still got strong Cora, Jordan Rickies. They're still good on the edges. I think they've got to redo Shibasaki, obviously. I'm sure they'll do that at some point, but there's still the nucleus of that. The Tony Staggs is still there. There's a nucleus of that team that won a comp, but they can't really do much around it. That's the thing. As you said, they've got to rely on the Shibasakis of this world to come through playing with that footy team.
Find them from somewhere.
But it's Brisbane, right? They've got a production line up there.
Yeah.
So, but I think that spine, you got Reece Walsh, Ezra Mam, Jonah Pezzett. That spine's good. You're going to be in contention still.
There is, I'm just tossing this out there. There is no world in which the Brisbane Broncos are relieved to see Haas go, and it's it's not even. Well, at least it solves the problem of our retention.
Well, no,
there is no world that happens.
No,
there is no
no. I'm sure there's a hope there, Jimmy, that they go that he stays for unders, because I'm sure if Payne went in the open market, we're talking 1.5 for Payne Haas.
Yeah, but they'd be happy to make him the highest paid front rower in the game in all of history, and go well.
Well, it depends what you classify Tino as. Is Tino a front rower? Because I'm told Tino's contract's got ratchets and kickers in it, and we're all saying he's on 1.2, but he's on more than that in 2027, and then it goes up in 28 with the ratchet clause. So it depends what you define Tino as. I'm told he's on 1.5 in a couple of years without the ratchet. So I mean that's probably going to go to 1.7 Tino. I'm not sure Brisbane can give Payne Haas that sort of money. So he's probably the second highest paid front rower in the comp.
Or middle.
Yeah. But no, they can't afford to lose Payne Haas. No. He's just a difference. He's a cheat code, that bloke.
Isn't he just?
Oh,
it's going to be detrimental to the. I mean, he's not the only player in this position that he stays, and likely others fall, but it would make their healthiness in terms of the ability to recruit. But again, they've done a lot of their work already with the re-signings, the acquisition of Jonah Pezzett.
Yeah.
Interestingly, does it give them any flexibility to retain Hunt and or Adam Reynolds?
Well, it probably depends what sort of money they want, Jimmy. Because, I mean...
Well, Hunt's on the cap at what?
500, I think it was, from memory. But I'd imagine he'd have to take a pay cut on that to stay around, because they don't really need him, with due respect to Ben Hunt. But there's no... if they keep Billy Walters, at some point you've got to give Blake Moser an opportunity, right? Because he was the next Cameron Smith coming through the grades, Blake Moser. He's had some problems. I think he had a shoulder issue, missed a lot of footy this year. But he's signed up long term. So if you keep Ben Hunt, where does he play? Because if Billy's your 14 off the bench, he's not playing in the halves. He's not going to play for nothing. So I just don't know that there's... And it's the same with Adam Reynolds. Just don't think there's a place for them unless they're willing to pay for $250,000, $300,000. And are they going to do that? Maybe not. Particularly Ben Hunt. Ben Hunt could probably go on the market and get more than that. So I don't know. At some point you got to cut the cord, don't you, Jimmy?
You're a long time retired, really.
That's true. It's true.
It's going to be interesting either way. This, obviously, their futures may be decided by retirement, or that if they want to go and play again, that's going to be interesting. But I think for the greater good of the game, Payne Haas, we hope he all stays in the game and most likely in the Brisbane Broncos jersey. Who's next, really? Why
don't we look at Melbourne, Jimmy? Because they don't have a lot of players contracted for 27, only about 14 from my calculations, but a lot of that cap space is chewed up. So
really?
And we've all thought they'd go hard at Tino.
Because
right?
I'm sat here at time of recording going, what is going on down there? They're not a football club that do compassionate grounds, yet they've let Ryan Pappenhausen and Nelson Asafa-Solomona walk away. Now, when I think back
they had to, Jimmy, their cap was so tight.
So, because go back to Josh Edelcar, I think when he requested a release, and they said, yeah, fine, but
you got to stay.
If we find a replacement, fair enough. Love that principle, and you could argue that more clubs should do that. Not about whether or not they want an unhappy player here. That's what Melbourne stand for. They don't fall for anything. But these two players, maybe it is instead of, what's going on down there? They're making a play for player X, aka Tino Fa'asuamaleaui. It is, we've maybe mismanaged but then I can't envisage a brains trust of Frank Panisi, Coach Bellamy sitting around the table planning things out and, just turning a blind eye to 27 salary cap problems unless they're looking at again, get the skeptic in me goes, unless they're looking at the exit strategy.
I think, Jimmy, they threw all their chips in this year and they thought we're going to push the limits with our cap, knowing the blokes had to leave at the end of this year. I think they thought, let's just have one red hot go at it, right? Let's keep Nelson around, right? Let's extend Paps and take up the option for 26. And let's just throw all our chips in this year and see if we can win it.
But there's no.
And once this season was over, there was always going to be movement at that club.
Yeah, but there was no way that they could have forecast Ryan Pappenhausen coming in and asking for a release. It was only 12 months ago that he re-signed. Like he
had an option in his contract for 27. So there was an option he had to take up by November 1 for 27. So there was always going to be a meeting before November 1 where they sat down with him and they either went, do you want to stay and extend beyond 27, or should we call it quits now? I think that was always destined to happen.
But not to be released for 26.
Potentially. I don't think that was off the table. 360 was obviously, the R360 thing was obviously another matter, but he was always at some point going to sit down with that club before November 1 and talk about his future and what the plans were.
And they couldn't have envisaged Nelson knocking on the door.
Well, Nelson didn't knock on the door. Nelson's door was knocked on, Jimmy.
Fair play, yeah. But then Nelson, I don't really know him that well, but he seems like a man that is not going to be told what to do.
No, but I think he got a little golden handshake to depart. I mean, I think the Nelson one was always, it's been headed this way for months. Nelson was always going to leave at the end of this year because it was just too broken. So, I think, as I said, I just think they went all chips in for this season, knowing that they have to make change at the end of this year. Now, if Pez stayed, there was every chance Munster went for 27. So there was always plans for players to move on and for change to take place. Did it happen? Maybe it happened in terms of Paps. Maybe it was 12 months ahead of schedule. Like maybe that one caught them. I wouldn't say caught them off guard, but I think if he'd stayed, maybe Su'a-Fa'alogo would have gone somewhere on loan. They would have found a way to make it work. Right?
So their money is, I'm assuming, predominantly tied up in the big three of Munster, Hughes, Grant. Grant recently extended. I always thought he was on the cheap previously.
He was previously,
like 850, 900.
I don't think he's on the cheap anymore, Jimmy.
Well, good on him, and he deserves to be paid. Yeah, the money invested in those three is heavy. With that, do they now lose that luxury of a Wishart? at 14, like arguably a number 7 at, maybe 5 or 6 teams, he'd be the starting 7. I think you could make a decent argument for that.
Well, that's their big challenge at the moment is keeping guys, right? Because you've got Wishart's on the market. Perth talking to Tyrone Wishart. Meaney's on the market. Perth talking to Nick Meaney. Warbrick's on the market.
Is he?
Yep. Sean Blaw's on the market. And there's a bit of talk Sean Blaw may look to come back to Sydney. So they're 4 significant guys at that footy club
good football,
who are all up
players.
for grabs
Yeah.
for 2027. So Melbourne have got probably a decision to make. Do we try and keep 2 or 3 of them, or do we go red hot for Tino? That's probably their decision they're making at the moment. And do we back ourselves to bring through some blokes? Because they're at a point now, Melbourne, where they're obviously spent a lot of money on pathways down there, and they're actually starting to bear some fruit in the pathway system down there. They've got some kids who are coming through who are going to be decent footballers. So I think their decision now is, do we keep Sean Blaw? Do we keep well, I don't think they'll keep Wishart. I think Wishart's going.
Yeah.
Right? Do we keep Nick Meaney? Right? Do we? And I think they really want to keep Nick, but Nick's also having a little look around. I think Nick's preference is to stay in Melbourne, but he's just seeing what's out there and obviously an gauge of his market value. Do we keep Warbrick, or do we let a couple of these blokes go, back our kids, go red hot for Tino?
It's interesting that do they maybe revert back to how they once were, where they had that big 3 in the spine, plus a Bromwich, a Proctor, a Chambers, where you look at it now, they're big 3 that we mentioned, and you go Stefano, Coates, and Tino, and then the rest, respectfully speaking, are privileged to play at Melbourne, and it is, look, you're here to win a comp, you're not here to make money.
Well, the only thing I'd say is a lot of those guys who are surrounding them, the Jack Howarth of the world, Meaney, Su'Falongo, they're on decent money too. They're not crying poor.
Yeah.
So Trent Liero re-signed earlier this year. So a lot of those guys are on decent coin as well. So as I said, if they're going to keep Meaney, they're going to have to shell out some money for him because he's.
Or do they say to the likes of Meaney, Warbrick, hey, look, you're here at Melbourne. This is what you've got.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to take less to stay,
because Tino's going to cost you a lot of money, Jimmy. He's going to chew up a lot of your cap. And
are you adamant that that's a go?
Melbourne? Well, they thought they had him last time. They thought he was coming back, and he ended up re-signing on the Gold Coast. And I reckon we'll have a decision. Maybe until pre-Christmas, we'll have a decision before the season starts. Tino's actually got till September to make a decision on whether he takes up the option for 27. September. It's an outrageous option. So he could make Gold Coast and everyone wait till September next year before he makes a call on what he does for 2027.
2 months later.
Yeah. So that's $1.2 million of your salary cap, which you can't really spend because Tino can get till September and go. He can say in September to the Gold Coast, I'm either leaving or staying.
Wow.
And they can't do anything about it because it's his option. So he could make everyone wait till then, but no other rival club's going to keep $1.2 million in there, or $1.3 million or $4 million in their salary cap, just sitting there waiting to get a decision out of Tino. So I think we'll have a decision from Tino, I think, before the season starts.
Yeah. Who's next in terms of?
I think Manly's an interesting one, Jimmy. Again, they're a club that they've got 18 players contracted for 27, so they don't have a lot of money to go spending in the marketplace. And they've got a couple of big guys who are off contract, haven't done deals yet, that they need to keep. Tolu Kula, hugely important for them, I think. The other interesting one's Ruben Garrick. Now, they've had a bit of a breakdown in negotiations with Ruben Garrick. They offered him, I think, about 1.1 for a 2-year extension. I think he thought he could get more in the open market. He's out in the open market at the moment, having a look around. I expect a decision from Ruben Garrick reasonably soon on what he's going to do. I think he might go. Kula has an option for 27. They've put a 3-year extension to Tolu Kula. But I think my understanding is that people close to Tolu think maybe he's a fullback and that potentially he could get a fullback job on the open market, which makes things interesting because there's a couple of clubs out there who need fullbacks. So I don't think they're no guarantee to keep Tolu Kula. if those two blokes go, Manly going to be in the market. They've got some money
Yeah.
to spend. If they stay, they don't have a lot of wriggle room. They're pretty tight.
They're waiting on the decisions of current players
Yeah.
that will affect their ability to move
Yes.
on a potential signing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other interesting ones, they got to keep some money for Jake Trbojevic in case he wants to go around again in 27. So
Could you ever see him leaving? Like, could he not
he
be?
won't
Would he
leave.
not be the Ben Hunt style? Or he's signed at the Broncos on massive unders compared to what he was at the Dragons.
Well, I think the deal they offered him, there was a deal put to him. It was significantly less than he's on, but then he had the head knocks. So they all agreed to park the talks
Yeah.
to see how he felt and how he went. And those talks haven't resumed. Obviously, his brother's extended. His brother got named captain today, which was really interesting, right, Tommy? So because there was a bit of talk, maybe Jake could be the captain, but Tommy's been named captain. I think it's a smart move. And, Manly, they're pretty locked in for 27. They're not gonna be out in the marketplace.
Do I recall, was it maybe Mestroff when he was there saying that they would be interested in paying Haas?
I think that was wishful thinking.
Or is that just like, of course we'd be interested in like...
I think they ended up with Davey Mawali.
Okay. Well, he's not a bad player, but he's not paying
Payne
Haas.
us. They wouldn't have. I can't imagine they'd have the money to go for Payne us. They just don't. They just don't have the cash for him.
One of the clubs I'm going to steer you into next is, and you mentioned it before we came recording and went live, the Tigers. So,
well,
this is a really interesting one. The Tigers.
When are they never interesting? They're always interesting. The Tigers.
It's the Tigers paradox.
It is.
Even when there's nothing doing, there's something doing.
Jimmy, all depends on Jerome Buller and Jerome Luai.
So in terms of a health check, it is you're waiting for the phone. You're like they're waiting to get called back into the doctor's office for the results, and it's because it's the one in their 6/7 or they're certainly their predominant playmaker, the heartbeat of the team. Yeah. In Jerome and obviously Buller.
And we're talking about guys on big money. I mean, those two blokes, the Jerome Buller option for 27's for 900, and Jerome's on 1.2. You're talking about $2.1 million of your salary cap. That's about what 16% of your cap. It's more than that. It's probably going to be in 2027. It's more like 30 million or so. So you're talking a significant amount of your salary cap that you don't necessarily know whether you're going to be able to spend it or not. Now, I think Jerome will stay. I think everything Jerome has said publicly as I understand it privately to the club is he's not going anywhere, right? So I think you pretty well lock Jerome in. Jerome, I mean, we've talked about Jerome at length about the situation with his contract and his option for 2027, which works both ways. And, he can take it up, I think, around 800. They take it up at 900. They're in talks. And, if Jerome goes, well, I think they'll be in the market. If Jerome stays, then they're pretty locked off.
And they have recruited and developed a pretty strong, healthy roster there that I think Tigers fans will be optimistic about, their chances to play finals. But again, it is going to, if Buller and Luai, if the worst was to happen, if those results come in on the health check and say, look, they're out, are they looking at not another rebuild, but it's, they certainly go into that ill health and, for two spine players with two new clubs coming in as well, it's not going to be, it's not ideal timing, is it?
Oh, it'd be a disaster, I think. If you lost both, maybe you could lose one and
adjust and
you could pivot and see what happens. But if you lost both, that'd be shattering for them because, as you said, you'd have some money to spend, but you're in a market with Perth. PNG's 12 months away. There's not a lot of spine players on the market to start with. So, as I said, I don't think Jerome's going anywhere. Jerome, I don't know. The talks, I'm told, have been positive between him and the club. And I believe he's told the club he wants to stay. So if they can iron out a long-term deal for Jerome Buller, Jerome's on one. They've extended Api Coruscant. okay, the cap's tight, but you know what? The spine's pretty locked in, and they've surrounded it with some pretty good footballers. They've got some young blokes as well. They've signed who, they've got Macassini coming through. They've got young Hayward, the hooker, coming through. They've got some young guys coming through the system, Phoenix Godinay, guys like that. So, yeah, the future looks pretty good for them if they can keep those two blokes.
Who's next, really?
Well, a couple of clubs we haven't talked about, Jimmy, the Dragons.
Are they in
old mobs?
Are they in a healthy spot cap-wise?
They got a lot of money. But the great challenge for the Dragons is signing someone, signing marquee names. They got a lot of money spare
for 27.
For 27, yep. So if they want to go to market, they could.
So how many players have they?
They got 17 contracted,
and they've got money there to go marquee.
Yes, to go marquee.
And they'd be battling with Perth and potentially PNG.
Parramatta's got a lot of money spared, Jimmy. Heap of money, actually. They're one club who've got a lot of money to spend, Parramatta. But, I mean, the issue for the Dragons is they just struggle to get a kill. And we've seen it. They obviously signed Gutho and Val Holmes and Cookie a little while ago, but they just... I mean, they've made it pretty clear they want to sign a half. I think the CEO came out and said that this year. They've signed Daniel Atkinson for next year. I mean, you wouldn't say, with due respect to Daniel, he's an elite playmaker in this comp.
I guess the jury's still out.
That's the worry for me. Yeah, they've got money to spend, right? But when you look at their squad, their spine there's so many question marks over their spine. There's talk that maybe they move Gutho and look to sign a fullback. Their halves will be Atkinson and Flanagan. And then the hooker, Cookie's off contract at the end of next season.
Cookie, Little.
So, that spine doesn't fill me with a heap of confidence. Right? So I think, they got money to spend, the Dragons, but
who are they going to bring?
Who are they going to sign? This is the problem for the Dragons at the moment. They're not an overly attractive club. And I've said it before, and I know supporters get the pips about it and Flano gets the shits about it. But recent history has shown they're not, in terms of signing players, they struggle.
I guess the last big marquee would have been Ben Hunt back in 2018.
Well, I suppose would you consider Gutho and Val Holmes Cookie marquees? They probably are, but they're not. They're marquees at the back end of their career rather than the start of them. They're guys who, Val maybe aside, they've got a...
Yeah, I think you can maybe argue Val being like a marquee.
But Gutho
Jaden Sewer, up there in the...
But Jaden Sewer's off, Jimmy. Jaden Sewer's got an option. It's his option for 27. So Jaden Sewer's... There's no guarantee Jaden Sewer's still there. I haven't factored him in because there's no guarantee he's there. There's been talk about him going to rugby, to Japanese rugby, French rugby. Been whispers about his future, and I'm sure they'd love. Look, for me, he's their best player.
I agree.
I don't know why they haven't. I don't know why they haven't sat down and ironed out a new deal with him.
So in terms of the health check for the Dragons, there's loads of room to move. But I mean, what is life outside the hospital looking like?
Yes,
it is. Yeah.
You compare that with Para, right? Parramatta's got a heap of salary cap room, but they are an attractive club at the moment because they look like they're going places.
So what? 12 to sort of 18, 24 months, Jason Riles has revamped a lot of that squad, because I think when he first got the gig, they were pretty tied up, weren't they, with people like Campbell Gillard, Lane, Mattison.
Yeah, so Mattison will be gone at the end of 20. His contract ends next year, the end of 26.
Gutho, another one, sorry.
If he's not gone before then. So I reckon they've got 15, I look at the NRL website, they've got 15 players under contract for 2027. And of those guys, really the only bloke on huge money is Mitchell Moses. Other than him, they'll probably extend Junior Paulo. He's off contract at the end of 26. They'll probably give him another 12 months, I'd imagine. I believe they're in talks with him already. But him aside, they don't have a lot of money tied up in marquee names.
Yeah.
But they've got a spine, Jimmy, that you can see is is heading in a direction, right? You got Isaiah Yongi at fullback, Mitch in the halves, De Silva and Riley Smith at hooker. Because I always come back to the spine, right? If you've got a good spine, then you're a chance of being a really competitive football team. And I reckon Para, with that spine and not a heap of money spent on it, and with money to blow on other positions, I think they're in a great position, Parramatta. And they're a club that I reckon is they're a really attractive club to people at the moment.
Mm.
So I think they're in a great spot, Parramatta.
You think they're a chance of getting Nelson?
I wouldn't rule it out, Jimmy. I don't think it's lay down Mazaire, but I wouldn't rule it out. And again, they've got the money, certainly got the money to fit him in. Would they be a team? Would they be a chance of getting someone like Tino, who potentially biggest name available in the next, well, certainly on the horizon? No, the bloke they're red hot for is Keon Koloamatangi. Ah, right. They're having a red hot go at Keon, and there were some whispers going around that they were a red hot chance of getting him. But there's been no movement. I think Keon's gone on holidays, so I'm not sure we'll know anytime soon. But they've had a red hot go at Keon Koloamatangi. So, but they're very healthy and an attractive proposition. Yeah, a lot of money to spend. Let's go across the ditch. Let's go to the Warriors. The Warriors. How are they? I know a lot of our Warriors fans very critical of us and lack of attention. But what have you got for us, really? How healthy are the Warriors looking? I reckon they're pretty well placed, Jimmy. They've got 19 players contracted for 27. They've got a bit of room if they want to go to market. But crucially for them, they re-signed Luke Metcalf. That was the key for them. Extended him out. He's there long term, and Fisher. They're pretty strong up front. Fisher Harris, Mitch Barnett. Yeah. I think they're in a pretty good spot, the Warriors. And they've got that production line of talent coming through. So I think at the moment for them, it's more about retaining and keeping those young blokes they've got coming through that system. Because I think they won the New South Wales Cup from memory, did they? Or they won. Anyway, they're very strong in lower grades as well. So they're in a very healthy position, the Warriors. And they've got a bit of money if they want to go to market for 27. So I think you're right, though. It will be about retention. Yeah, well, you've got those guys like Halasima that they've retained long term. And it's just, as I've said, it's production line over there. And Andrew Webster obviously knows what success looks like coming out of the Penrith system. We've seen Canterbury look to replicate that in a way, and certainly in the horizon, they want to be a development club. I think the biggest problem. And Warriors will try and enter that mould of, we've got everybody here in our backyard. Well, the biggest issue for them is keeping Metcalf fit. I think when Metcalf's fit, he might have won the Dally. Well, he was in contention up near the top of the Dally M before he got injured this year. If they can keep him fit, then they'll be there again when the whips are cracking the next couple of years, because 19 players contracted, the bulk of the team that competed this year before Metcalf got injured. Yeah, when you put it like that, that's pretty good spot to be in. Egan's obviously a class hooker. Chan's at fullback. The spine's pretty set. Yeah. And Fisher Harris, Halasima, Barnett, Morgan Gannon, a bloke is coming over. So they've got a pretty good. For me, they're in a pretty good spot. The Warriors. All right, 5 teams to go. Reedy, I'm assuming they're all very healthy. We've got the Raiders, the Dogs, the Sharks, the Titans, and the Cowboys. Who do you want to tackle first? Well, Titans are interesting because it all depends on Jimmy. They're awaiting the results. They're in the waiting room, just backside twitching. This could go either way. My calculations have only got about 14 players contracted for 2027, right? So, wow. And that's including Tino. So if Tino stays, man, their cap, they can't do much at all, because they've re-signed Jaden Campbell long term. They've re-signed Bo Fermor long term. I imagine both those blokes, well, we know Jaden Campbell got a significant upgrade. Bo Fermor's, I imagine, got upgraded. Tino's on huge money. They've still got Keanu Kinney's on a monster deal. So it is just pivoting. Is it the end of AJ Brimson and the Titans? Well, because he's on a decent wicket. He's on a great wicket. Would he be up there with the highest paid centres in the game if that's where he's playing? Is he a centre? Well, I don't. But he's on fullback money. But the only position for him to play is in the centres. Yeah. Well, there's been a bit of talk they might play him and Campbell in the halves, but I think they've tried that before and it hasn't really worked. So, Jimmy, I think I think for the balance of their cap, it's going to be hard for them to keep all those guys. I think something's got. I think but you know what? How long have we been saying this for? That they got too many fullbacks at that footy club, and they haven't done anything to rectify the situation. They've kept them all, and we've been saying it for years, right?
Well, I think Hane's adamant he can turn Campbell into the next Jerome Hughes, which good on him for recognising Campbell's ability in the halves, but I think 3 genuine fullbacks might be a push.
Yeah. At some point, I reckon something's got to give there. And Brimson's the most likely one to give because...
Well, Keeney shot the lights out the year before.
He's a superstar.
Campbell's just re-signed, so by process of elimination. So,
AJ... if Tino stays, they don't have a lot of cap room. Their cap's pretty unhealthy. And I reckon, and a way you can free up some space, maybe you let AJ Brimson go. Well, someone else will take AJ. He's a hell of a footballer.
Of course. Let's check out the Cowboys. I'm interested in this one.
The Cowboys, Jimmy, let me just scroll down on my little screen here. They're in a great spot. Great spot, Jimmy. They don't have a lot of players contracted for 27, only about 13. And they've got a fair few of them on decent money. Griffin Neame signed the new extension. Tomalolo, obviously. Nanai, Cotter, Dearden. But that spine, like if Drinkwater's still there, you got Drinkwater, Purdue, Dearden, Reed, Marnie. I think they're in a good spot, the Cows. I don't mind their squad. I know they've...
Don't mind it, mate. It's exceptional on paper.
For 27, they've got a lot of spots to fill. They don't have a heap of money to fill it with. But the nucleus of that team... When you take into account Cohen Hess, Griffin Neame, Hillam Lukey, Tomalolo still there, Nanai, Cotter, Drinkwater, Dearden, Labert's a good footballer, Reed Marnie, Purdue. Well, actually, I shouldn't say Purdue because Purdue's only signed till end of 26, so
he'd be
they've got to try and keep him,
wouldn't it?
and they're trying to keep him. They've got a long-term deal on the table for Jackson Purdue. Provided they keep Purdue, and that's a priority, provided they keep Purdue, they're in a pretty good spot.
All right. Let's get to the Dogs. I'm interested in this one because by where we're going, you're thinking they're healthy, but I thought they were pretty tight.
Well, 18 players contracted. I think they're in a reasonable spot. The difficulty for them is the spine because, I think... They don't have a heap it depends what happens, where this lands, right? Because you've got, obviously, Galvin's in the halves. At the moment, Burton's in the halves with him. I think we all expect Mitch Woods to come through eventually and take that number 7 jersey. Galvin slots to 6. Do you move then Burton to the centres? Then suddenly you got Burton and Crichton in the centres. 2 blokes on huge money.
Cherry.
And Cherry's, well, I don't know where Cherry is. So... I don't think they're in a bad spot for 2027. They don't have a heap of room to move. But the issue is I don't, it depends so much on how Hayward goes at hooker. They need fullback's a position for them where Tracy's not an elite fullback. Whilst I think salary cap wise they're not awful, I think there's a lot of balls in the air there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of question marks heading into the next couple of years.
Yeah, interesting.
I think the one we all think that's got to give is Matt Burton. And I know Cameron Sorrella doesn't want to lose him, but he's on huge money. And if he eventually moves to the centres, you can't have 2 centres in the modern game. We talked about the Penrith experience before, right? Burton's on around $1 million. Crichton would be nudging $1 million. You cannot have 2 centres on your cap chewing up $2 million of your salary cap. Can't work. So, I mean, if this ends up going the way we all think it will, which is Woods and Galvin in the halves, Burton slides out to the centres, I don't see how that can
Crichton goes to fullback maybe?
Well, that's the only way, Jimmy. The Crichton maybe moves to fullback, and then you've got Cherry and Burton in the centres.
Still a lot of money in your back line. I mean, Woods, if he plays well, he's going to get upgraded.
He is, but at least you're getting, and Hayward's not on huge money. So you're not spending a truckload on your spine, but you are spending a significant amount, but not as much as some of the other clubs. It's just a different way of going about it.
We've got 2 left. Sharks, I'm surprised they're healthy because one of the give credit where credit's due is Coach Fitzgibbon has, resisted the temptation to change this roster. He backed his coaching ability to squeeze a bit more out of these current crop of players, and he's been rewarded with that for 2 deep final series in the past 2 seasons, but just missing out. But you think that they're in a very healthy position?
A lot of blokes coming off in 12 months' time. A lot of blokes coming off. So it means for 2027 they got a lot of roster spots and a fair bit
very healthy in terms of like
salary cap space and a spine that's pretty well. Again, fullback Will Kennedy's only on a year contract, so but Hines, Trindle, Blake Browley, spine's pretty well. They'll be 3 or 4 spine players, right? Locked in. Got some blokes on big money. Fanua Blake, Nakora's on good cash, but only about I think it was 11 players or so that they've got contracted for 27.
Wow.
Not a heap of blokes contracted for 27. So it means, they've got a little bit of room if they want to go to market and have a shop around.
Be interesting to see what he does there, Coach Fitzgibbon.
Mate, I feel like that squad needs a revamp. I don't know about you.
I think it depends what you're swapping them for and who you're swapping those players for. Like, it really depends. Like, I think Fitzgibbon has obviously shown loyalty to them, and then it would be a massive change in direction from his thinking.
I mean, they've basically got the nucleus of their current teams locked away. The issue is the guys they squeeze around. And there's guys like Jesse Calhoun they're trying to re-sign.
Got to re-sign him.
Perth are chasing him hard,
I'm not surprised.
my understanding.
Yeah, they would be. Well, a lot of teams would be.
Ramian's a guy off contract. They've got to make a decision on him. It sounds like they may not keep him. We mentioned Will Kennedy. Sione Katoa is on the market. So they've got the bulk, the nucleus of that squad is still, the Fanua Blakes, the Brayleys, Nakoras, Kale Iro, Kafusi, Militalo, Wilton, Hazelton, Hines, Trindle. The nucleus of that starting side is locked up. It's the guys they fit around that. But they've got the salary cap space to maybe make some moves if they need to. Quite
the predicament for Coach Fitzgibbon to be in. Be interesting to see which way he goes. We'll finish off on last year's minor premiers, Reedy. I'm assuming they're very healthy.
Let me find them, Jimmy. Just got to find them first and see what my research tells me.
If you've left these guys for last and they're not in a healthy position, this is going to be an absolute fail in my assessment of you when you come into the doctor office.
Give me a second.
Have you even done the Raiders? Have you left the Raiders?
I found them, Jimmy. I got them. Pretty good spot. A lot of players already contracted for 27. Look, I mean, we've seen they've signed Kobe Black, right, for 27. They're not going to be. There was a bit of talk they might chase Keon Kalamatongi for 27. That's not
really.
Yeah, they were very keen on him. They chased him last time before he re-signed, but
as replacement for Papali'i.
But I don't believe they're going to go down that path because the price has got too high for them. I think obviously Keon's looking at over $1 million, and they've already got $1 million in Joey Tapine. So you probably can't afford 2 front rowers on $1 million. So they've got some money to spend, but they've got 20 spots filled already. Spine's locked in. Weeks. Strange, either Kobe Black or Ethan Sanders, Tommy Starling or Owen Paddy at hooker.
Brayley's there as well.
Brayley, of course, is there as well. So the bulk of that side's locked in for 2027. So I can't imagine they're going to be big players in the market over the next 12 months.
Well, thanks for leaving them to last.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot who it was for a second there.
Oh,
forgot Canberra. Well, they went out the finals pretty quickly. It was easy to forget.
Oh, dear. Really, it's been really fascinating to have this dive into each team's salary cap health check. The market is always moving.
Yeah.
It's
we forgot Perth, Jimmy.
Well,
they got a lot of money to spend.
They are incredibly healthy. Yeah, yes. the healthiest. Well, I said all 17 teams. Yeah. Obviously, the 18th team in being Perth are, they're clean bill of health. They're ready to rumble. Blank canvas. PNG even healthier. They're like the newborn baby. They've got they've had all their what are they called? The jabs, injections. Yeah, they're ready to go. They're ready to breathe life into the comp. Really, absolute pleasure as always.
Pleasure to be here, Jimmy.
top marks on your hosting, by the way.
Oh,
you
thanks,
and
mate.
Wade
Yeah.
Graham were absolutely
Always
fantastic.
available, mate.
Yeah,
Well, Wade
we'll-
just spoke. I just asked a question. Wade spoke for 5 minutes anyway.
All right, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you very soon.